What's up, Joe? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Sports 360. I'm Jeff Fannell, and as always, I'm here with my man, Rob Duran of Rob Duran Sports. Rob, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well, too. I'm doing well. We're speaking here on July 11th, a week before the MLB All-Star game, and both of our teams, the Mets and Yankees, are in first place. The Yankees are comfortably in first place, even after losing 2 of 3 over the weekend to the Red Sox, where the Mets, did they lose 2 or 3? Was it 2? It was a 3-game series?
It was 4. They split.
Oh, so but they lost the last 2.
Yeah.
Right, okay. And the Mets, though, are holding on for dear life as they head into Atlanta tonight for the start of a 3-game set with just a game and a half lead over the Braves, who have been one of the hottest teams in baseball for over a month now. So, yeah, New York, New York, but one team is sitting on top, and got their legs crossed, and the other team, my Metsies, are sweating bullets. Um, but how about you as a Yankee fan, man? You one of them Yankee fans that, needed some psychiatric counseling today after they lost 2 games to the Red Sox over the weekend?
Man, Twitter, you would think the Yankees fell into fourth place and they are struggling and they've lost 10 in a row. But I'm going to tell you, man, I'm not panicking. Obviously, the Yankees have some holes they need to fill. I think every team does, even with the 14-game lead. But I'm not panicking. I'm not concerned. I'm not worried. They built this big cushion very early. And listen, it's baseball. It's 162 games. You're going to lose. You're going to look bad. There are going to be tough stretches. And the Yankees are probably in the middle of a tough stretch right now, but I'm not concerned at all. You know, they split that series with the Red Sox and they didn't lose any ground against them. Still 14 games. I'm not worried. I'm waiting to see what they do for the trade deadline, what pieces they add. I think they need at least one starting pitcher, some outfield help, something in the bullpen, just to kind of solidify the roster for that October run. But I'm not concerned, man. Not at all.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you concerned at all about the red hot Baltimore Orioles, man? I mean, the Orioles I think, have the longest winning streak right now in all of Major League Baseball. And they're coming up, man. They're even rising in the power rankings. I mean, when
They
the last
are.
time the Baltimore Orioles have been within the top 20 in the power rankings? And I think this week, or as we're speaking, they're ranked number 15. Um, are you concerned about Baltimore, man? I mean, they look like they're coming
They,
after the Yankees, man.
that's a young team. They're hungry. They're listen. I've been saying we got to look out for Baltimore because one year I'm gonna get it right, and they're gonna be good enough to make some noise. This might be the year, man. The dark horse team in the AL. You never know what can happen.
Yeah. I think Baltimore still has a way. Look, I think every other team in that division is still better than Baltimore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, in the AL East. So look, every team can get hot, and Baltimore's been playing well. But what's really interesting though, Rob, is like they're playing well at the wrong time. If I'm running the Orioles, because they have some pieces on their team, that players who you think would be very attractive as trade candidates. But if they keep playing well, it's going to be a false expectation
Hmm.
created that perhaps they can make a run. And I wonder if the GM and the club leadership somehow feel a little bit handcuffed by their recent success. You know what I'm saying? Like, because like Trey Mancini is probably a trade candidate.
Yeah.
I think, what's his name? Lopez? They're
The
that
closer.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Or
think he's
or
a
George
trade
Lopez.
candidate, don't you? I mean, but
Yeah, they had. That's a team that has a few pieces that you look at a team and maybe they don't trade with the Yankees, but they have in recent years with Britain going to New York. But teams like that, where these guys aren't necessarily superstars, but they fill in different places on other rosters that are necessary. And Baltimore could get some good prospects in return and sell high for these contending teams. But I agree. If Baltimore, let's say, by the trade deadline is still as close as they are now to that third wild card spot, they may hold on and try to buy at the deadline, and then we'll see that regression from that team. And maybe we won't, and it'll be fun if they continue to win. But ultimately, I expect them to regress come back down to earth kind of thing, and then they would have missed their opportunity to sell off at the deadline and get rid of not get rid of, but trade away these players who could have helped them bring in prospects for next year or beyond.
Yeah. Because look, I mean, right now, Baltimore is 2 games out of the last wild card spot. I
Yeah.
mean, so they can legitimately say, "We have a chance." So do they become sellers? You know what I'm saying? Because again, I think this is false. I think this is smoke and mirrors. I think it's temporary, as you were saying. So I think they still have to be thinking otherwise, but that might be tough to convince. The fan base is probably really feeling good about this team right now.
Yeah, and I think of a team like Seattle, where not much was expected of them last year, and they were very close to the playoffs. And they're hot now, and they're in the wild card talk, and they're in there at the third spot. But they made these moves because it was like, wait a minute, we just got good all of a sudden. Nobody expected this. Let's bring in some veteran talent. Let's try to mix it up, and let's go for it this year. And maybe Baltimore thinks like that, but I think as a front office, you have to really look at it yourself and say, are we there? Like, is it worth bringing in guys and trading away some of our prospects for veteran talent rentals, pretty much? Because I don't think Baltimore is going to take on any big contracts. But bringing
No.
in rental guys for prospects, are we really trying to do that this year, or should we hold off? Let's trade away some of our assets and really bring in some talent to help continue build what we're building here, and kind of use this year as a foundation.
Yeah. Look, it's tough because I think, like a guy like Mancini is going to be a free agent, right? So you either move him or you lose him,
Yeah.
right? So they have some decisions to make. If a week from now, as we head into the All-Star break, the Orioles are still playing well and everything else, I think they're, and coming out of the break, they continue to kind of, still seem to be in the hunt. It may force that team to stand pat. I agree with you. They're not going to bring on big salaries, but it may force them to stand pat, with the
Hmm.
idea of, hey, this team that we have right now may get us there. Um, I think they're going to be under pressure. I think they're going to have decisions to make. And
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But we have to see if they continue to play well, as we head to the trade deadline. But yeah, man, watch out for your Yanks. Better watch out for those Orioles, man. Shoot, the birds are flying
Man,
high, Jack.
I never thought we'd have a whole segment on the Baltimore Orioles on the show.
Neither did I. Neither did I. The other thing though, speaking about my team now, the Metsies, the Braves have just been stalking them over the last month or so. There was a time when the Mets had maybe an 8, 9, 10 game lead over the Braves, and like right now, as we said, coming into this 3-game set, starting tonight, um, that lead has shrunk to a game and a half. But here's the thing, though. I'm a Mets fan, but I will say this: the Braves are better than the Mets,
Mm,
in my opinion. I think they have a better team. I think their lineup is much deeper. Right. I think they have some dynamic players that the Mets just don't have. The Mets don't have a player like Acuna on their team. Ozzy Albies is hurt, but Ozzy Albies is, a really good player. Austin Riley, Dansby Swanson, Travis Darno behind the plate. I think the Mets catching situation from an offensive standpoint, they have one of the worst, you
Yeah.
know, worst production from the catcher's position of any team in baseball. Travis Darno probably is going to be an all. Is he an all-star? Travis Darno has he been named?
I'm not sure.
But I think he's deserving of it for sure if he hasn't made it. And then they got Matt Olson at first, and obviously the Mets got the polar bear. But I think the Braves lineup is much deeper and much more potent than the Mets. And then I think their pitching is probably just as good, if not better, than the Mets, top to bottom, when you add the rotation and the bullpen.
Yeah.
So, to me, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, and maybe it'll be this series, I don't know, that the Braves overtake the Mets because I think the Braves are a better team than the Mets. I think the Mets need at least another bat. There's been some talk about uh, Wilson Contreras, right? That they may get him. That figure he's going to be out there on the market at the trade deadline. But I think the Mets need another bat, and certainly if they can improve at the catcher's position, that would be ideal. Because right now, as I said, their catchers offensively are really challenged.
Yeah, and listen, the Braves have preached depth in that roster up and down for the past few years, and they've made moves and they've added pieces, and sometimes it's pieces that may not be producing at their old team. And like I think of a Jorge Soler who came in last year and just tore it up. I think he won the World Series MVP and everything. So the Braves get these guys, and they're stars when they get to Atlanta. And they got hot at the right time. They're playing some great baseball. Michael Harris is a guy in the outfield for them who's just doing an amazing job. Another unexpected,
Hmm.
call up and doing a great job up there. And I agree. I think the Mets are missing at least one impact bat. I think they need some. I think they need at least a starter, and not so much a star pitcher to come in, but someone who can eat some innings, be consistent. It doesn't have to be. I think back to like when the Yankees traded for like a Lance Lynn, something like that. Who at the time he
Mm.
wasn't what he became with the White Sox, but someone who came in and can just eat innings, give them 6, 7 innings, per start, maybe give up 3, 4 runs, but really count on that offense to make up for that for the the lack of dominance in the starting rotation. But yeah, I think the Mets, they started off hot and we saw the natural regression of a team, but I agree, they have to add a couple pieces at this deadline. Whether it's an impact bat or a couple pitchers to really solidify and hold on to that division.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that the Mets aren't a good team. I think they are.
Yeah.
I think fundamentally they're a good team. I think they have some nice players, but I think you say it right. The impact back, they need that. They need one or two of them, man. Because I look at the Mets and I'm saying, okay, other than Alonso, who scares you in that lineup?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you can start singling out one guy in a lineup, then you can pitch around him, right? And you can make him hit your pitches because you know what I'm saying? Like you're saying, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna let that guy beat me.
Yeah.
But when you have 3 or 4 guys in a lineup who you say, man, I gotta go through these guys, right? It makes it better for everybody because you got to pitch to every guy.
Yeah. I think a guy like a Josh Bell from Washington would be a good fit. He could DH, play some first, kind of spell Pete Alonso, maybe alternate DH and first base. That'll be a nice
Hmm.
bat. He's having a pretty good season this year.
Yeah,
Somebody like that
yeah,
that'll
because
put some fear.
yeah, because they're kind of using Dominic Smith in that role, and it's just not the same.
Yeah.
It's just not the same. So, listen, again, I would think that the Braves are going to overtake the Mets this year. I just think the Braves are a better team, and so I think if there's any Mets fans out there right now who are on the couch because they're going, oh my gosh, we're going into Atlanta, and we're only 1.5 up. It's like take a chill because more than likely you're going to be looking up at Atlanta when the dust settles this season. I still think the Mets will be in it. You know what I mean? I think they probably will finish in second. I think the Mets are better than the Phillies. I do think the Phillies
Yeah,
have a more potent lineup than the Mets, but I think the Mets may be overall better. And then look, if they get DeGrom back, man, that could change a whole lot of stuff. And he's DeGrom,
yeah,
because Scherzer, he came back off the IL and, he pitched really well against Cincinnati. And they have him going tonight in the first game of this 3-game set with Atlanta. And he's still pitching well. Taiwan Walker, I know I talked about Taiwan and said, listen, he was an all-star last year, then he was a no-star after the all-star break. But Taiwan Walker, Rob, he's been great for the Mets
he
over the
has.
first half of the season.
He has. And if Chris Bassett is a guy who I expected to be doing much better, he started the season off, pretty good. If he can round into form, that's a pretty solid rotation, man.
It sure is. It
Right
sure
after
is.
the All-Star break, that's kind of what the Mets would need.
Right. And I think that could change the course of things as well. So I think the Mets will be in it to the end. But I do think they need to make some changes, add some additions. I think Philly is, starting to play well, and it's without Bryce Harper, right, who's been
Yeah,
out, with the busted thumb after he got hit by Blake Snell. Um, but he'll be back. But the Phillies have been playing well. They've been pitching well, which is kind of
yeah.
a surprise. But they're
Kyle
playing well, and I
Schwarber,
think you got to, yeah, man.
he's out of his mind right now.
Yeah, and he gets like that, doesn't he? Remember
Yeah,
last year with the Nationals where he was like he just went on
man.
some ridiculous home run streak? Yeah, he gets that way, and, Kyle Schwarber has really been swinging a hot stick. So, look, I think Mets fans need to just chill and just enjoy the fact that, you know, it should be competitive over the second half of the season, and hopefully the Mets continue to play well, are playing meaningful games, and, they continue to contend for the division. But I think the expectation should be that the Braves probably are the better team, and that's okay. It's okay.
We'll see, man. You never know. The deadline could change everything. If DeGrom, like you said, if DeGrom comes back and he's Jacob DeGrom, and he looked really good in his minor league start, he's pumping
Mhm.
100
Yeah,
in that rehab start. So if he comes back and he's himself, him and Scherzer, that's that's something to fear.
yeah. And by the way, on that point, the Mets reportedly weren't happy that DeGrom was pumping 100 in his rehab starts, because they believe that one of the things he needs to do is dial it down.
Hmm.
And I kind of agree with that. I don't think, he needs to, throw 100 consistently. It was interesting. I was watching a little bit of the Mets game yesterday. They were playing the Marlins, and Sandy Alcantara was on the mound, who's just been phenomenal this year, right, for
So
the
good,
Marlins.
super good.
Yeah, man, unbelievable. And this guy goes deep in games. He pitched 8 innings yesterday. You know what I mean? And he's always going deep in games and pitching with high quality. And they were saying about Alcantara that he says he kind of he doesn't go all out at the beginning of the game. He saves some for later. So he paces himself.
Hmm.
So he's not going out there throwing with everything he has in the early innings. He paces himself so that he can still bring it and maybe even up the heat later in the game. And so I think there's I think there's a reason why this guy's going deep in games,
Yeah,
because, I think there are too many pitchers in baseball now who, from the very first inning, are throwing as hard as they can. And it's almost like I'm going to throw as hard as I can for as long as I can, which is
yeah,
why a lot of these guys are 5 and a third, 5 and 2/3, go 6 innings, and they want a Purple Heart. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, put a Purple Heart on my chest. I just put 6 innings, 6 innings. You know what I mean? And Alcantara gets mad when you come and try to take him out in the 8th inning or the 7th
yeah.
inning. You know what I mean? Because he's like, wait a minute, I'm not done.
Yeah.
So I think so. The Mets weren't happy with DeGrom, Rob. They said, you know what? They're hoping that he dials it down when he comes back, especially for a guy who has such an injury history. You know what I'm saying? You can see why the Mets feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you bring that up because I was actually watching the Yankees Red Sox game on the Michael K and A-Rod game casting they do on
Hmm.
ESPN, and they had Roger Clemens on. And one of the things that Clemens said is when he pitched, his fastball was normally 93, 94. But when it came to face guys like, he mentioned Alex Rodriguez or, top guys, big hitters, that's why he would save his fastball and pump it up, and they would get the 97, 98. And he was like, I could go 100, absolutely, but there was no reason for me to go at 100, against the number 8 hitter or the number 9 hitter. I saved that for
Hmm.
the heart of the lineup to make sure that I had my best pitches for the best hitters.
Yeah.
So I absolutely get it with Sandy doing the same thing, kind of having that in his reserve. Luis Severino's another guy who he can definitely dial it up there to 98, 99, but you kind of see him hovering a little bit lower than that unless he really has to bring it. When he's in
Mm.
a jam or when he knows, this is my last inning, I'm gonna let it rip. And that's why you see, like you said, that's why you see some of these guys able to go past that sixth inning, get into the seventh, the eighth, which is not something we see every day. So maybe the Mets have a point, and maybe DeGrom doesn't have to give you 99, 100. Maybe he can sit 96, 97 because he has great movement on his pitches. And, he has some great off-speed stuff, so he can learn to manipulate that and use that to his advantage. And then if he has to dial it up to 100 in the seventh inning against one of the top hitters, so be it. Let it go. But I think the Mets have a point, especially when you want to make a run in October.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we'll see. We'll see what happens when and if DeGrom comes back. Last thing on the baseball front, with the All-Star game next week, home run derby, the full field has not been announced, but we know that Pete Alonso, who's defending two-time champion, I believe, in the
Yeah.
home run derby, will be participating again, as will Ronald Acuna Jr. from the Braves. But also, too, it was announced today, at least it's being reported, that Prince Albert Pujols, who is one of the legends that have been selected by Commissioner Manfred, along with Miguel Cabrera from the American League, to be in the All-Star game. Albert Pujols, you told me earlier, the 5 home runs on the season is going to compete in the home run derby. I hope Prince Albert has more than 5 home runs in his bat at the home
I,
run
sh-
derby.
I sure hope
Because
so, man.
otherwise it could be sad. Well, what do you think about Pujols being in the home run derby, bro?
Um, I think it's fun, I guess, for the fans to see Albert Pujols in there. But like you said, if he goes out to considering the kind of shows he put on when he participated before, if he goes out there and doesn't hit more than 5 home runs, or it's one of those bad swing things going on, man. I mean, I guess it's fun for the fans to see him. It's his last season. He got a chance to pitch earlier in the year,
Right.
and now gets a chance to end his career with the home run derby. I don't think he'll win the expectation. I'm sure he'll get eliminated in the first round, but I guess it's fun for us fans to kind of see that for the last time.
My money's on Prince Albert to win. I'm telling you that right now. I'm going to Kinko's tomorrow and start printing out, labels. I'm gonna get some T-shirts made from Vistaprint,
Man.
but or whoever makes the T-shirts and stuff. And yeah, Prince Albert. I'm going for Prince Albert for the win.
Mm. Wow. Oh, man. I'll
It'll
leave
be
that one
interesting
there.
to see how they throw the ball to him if they pitch under.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that my money's on
Man.
Prince Albert. I don't care who else is in the contest. They could bring back the combination of Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, and Sammy Sosa and put them in one player, and I'm still gonna go with Prince Albert.
I'll tell you what, I would not want to be the guy who loses to him in that first round, though.
I know. I know. So that'll be interesting to see my man Albert Pujols in what will be his last All-Star game, competing in the home run derby. So we'll see that next week. So yeah, but my money's on Albert. Switching gears for a minute, we've been talking about Brittney Griner for a while, and last week there was some developments there with her situation regarding her detainment in Russia on drug charges. Um, First of all, what was interesting was that there was a lot of um, you heard a lot of rumblings from her family, from her wife, about how Joe Biden, they hadn't heard from him.
Mhm.
And the administration was very careful to talk about how Biden, was in contact with the family and all the rest of it. But it seemed like that contact was indirect, if you really read between the lines. And it was a groundswell because it's like her wife was like, "That's it. I'm not being quiet anymore." And she went on interview tours, and players started speaking up, very vocal on social media. You had 100 prominent Black women who signed a letter saying, "Brittney Griner, hey, enough is enough. The United States needs to get a home." Um, Al Sharpton was talking about he and other religious leaders should be allowed to go to Russia so that they can pray for and be a source of support for Griner. So it was a lot going on. And then Griner last week pled guilty, which, some legal experts has been saying that might be her best strategy because it seemed as if Russia was saying until she was sentenced, there would be no talk of a potential exchange. You know what I mean? I think that's at least one of the factors going on. So there was a lot happening last week, Rob. And so what do you take of all the activity and even Biden and Vice President Harris reached out to Griner's wife, I think, after all the rumblings about how he hadn't done so personally. So it seems as if a lot of the work on the ground and a lot of the, you know, um, protests and so forth coming forth from various places made a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's stuff that back when this began, you and I did, spoke about, this stuff has to be continued. We have to continue to give it, legs, let it run. We can't just forget that Brittney Griner's over there. And I think for a while there was a lot of quiet about her situation. It wasn't on the news, it wasn't on ESPN, it wasn't being talked about on social media. And now we can see the power of speaking out. People using their voice, people talking, going on social media, all that stuff. There's a power to your words when you speak it the right way. And I think that's what we're seeing now with this Brittney Griner situation, where a lot of people, a lot of her support are saying, all right, enough is enough. Like, this has gone on for way too long. There hasn't been any movement, any word, nothing going on. We need her home, and this is the outcome of that. And it's putting pressure on the Biden administration to make some moves, whether it's communicating with the family or sending people over to check on her and get updates and all that stuff. But pressure is being put on the administration to make moves, and hopefully, this is something that then grows into actually bringing her home and whatever the terms are going to be to get her home.
Yeah, and one of the things that goes with the groundswell that has, sprung up is the reaction from Russian officials because their response has been, "This is not helpful." And they point out, especially, all of the what they call rhetoric from the U.S. government, saying that Brittney Griner has been wrongfully detained. And, they're saying these are very serious charges against her and so forth. And so, obviously the relationship between the two countries, the United States and Russia, is not good right now, given what's going on in the world with the war, Russia against Ukraine. Um, but the Russian officials have, not surprisingly, taken a tough stance, right? And have come out and pointedly said, okay, you guys are making a lot of noise, but that's not necessarily helpful. But I think for folk here in the country, those who are supporting Brittany, and is coming from a lot of places, there is this sense of, okay, enough is enough. We got to get a home, um, which I think is great. But I also know too, and you and I talked about it offline, that there are other Americans who are detained in Russia and in other countries, and some families have expressed some unhappiness with the attention that's being focused on Brittney Griner as opposed to their family member who maybe is not as much of a household name. Um, I think there's some legitimacy to that, even though there are some people who think there hasn't been enough attention on Brittney Griner. So there's a lot of layers here, Rob. You know what I mean? Because there are a lot of Americans in various countries who are detained and been detained, some for years and years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is about the name. Like you said, it's about the household name, the power that a name holds. So there were talks about if it was LeBron or Tom Brady out there, this would be headlines every single day. And I do agree with that. If it were LeBron James or Tom Brady or somebody like that, their star power, their name would be out there a lot more than Brittney Griner's is. But as you mentioned, Brittney Griner's name is out there a lot more than the average Joe that's out there, that's been out there for years, 20 plus years maybe. And we have never heard about it, don't know anybody's name. So yeah, there is like you said, there are levels to this, and I think we're seeing that in this situation.
Yeah. And you had mentioned the player, I think you said it was Sophie Cunningham, who
Yeah, from the
was quoted
Mercury.
as saying, right, if it was LeBron or Tom Brady, there'd be more attention. I think she's absolutely right. But I don't think it's a male female issue. I'm not sure that's what she was saying. Maybe she's just saying those guys have bigger names and so they would, but that's the point though. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I think it's the name. I don't think it's male female, right? I don't think it's male athlete, female athlete. I think it's LeBron is just a bigger name. Tom Brady's a bigger name. But, I mentioned to you before, you give me the backup quarterback on Tampa Bay, who we don't even know who he is, right? Or you take a third string catcher on a baseball team, he's a male, but if he was detained, I think Brittney Griner would get more attention than that guy because just of the name and the star power of the person
absolutely.
involved. So I don't think I think it's true that LeBron and Brady would get more attention, but I think it's because they're LeBron and Brady, right? I mean, their names are just bigger than most other athletes and most other human beings right now in the world. So, but again, I don't know if it was meant as a male female type of a thing or a male athlete versus female athlete type of a thing, but I don't think male female has anything to do with it. I think
No,
there are some female athletes who probably would get more attention than Brittney Griner because they have a bigger name. If it was Serena Williams,
mm, yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So I get it, but I also get what these families are saying too, who say, "Hey, wait a minute, my son, my daughter has been detained and no one has been talking about her or him, and this has been going on for years." I get that point too. You know what I'm saying? I get both.
yeah, absolutely. And it's like we said, there are levels to it. Whether it's unfortunately or not, there are levels to it, and unfortunately, I guess you can say for those families who don't have their loved ones with them, and there is nobody to speak for them, um, they get prioritized. Bigger names will get prioritized.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, but there has been movement. We the guilty plea. Biden administration personally reaching out to the family, and more dialogue, and so we'll see what happens. Obviously, as this story continues to unfold. Um, I guess the last thing, Rob, the NBA and NBA free agency, was crazy. There's been some trades. Rudy Gobert going from Utah to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And there's been long-standing stories of Gobert and star guard Donovan Mitchell not getting along. And Utah clearly said who they believe is more important to their future because they
Mhm.
kept Mitchell and they shipped out Rudy Gobert. But there's been a lot going on. But the one thing I just want to talk about real quickly, man, as we get ready to head on up out of here, Damian Lillard just signed a 2-year extension for $122 million. Now, he has 3 years left on his current deal. That's going to pay him 137 million, right?
Man.
Which is about 45, 46 million a year. And then the 2-year deal kicks in with an AAV of $61 million. What?
Man. Man, oh man. I'm telling my kid is playing basketball, Jeff. I know I named him Jeter, but Jeter could play in the NBA too.
That's right. I mean,
Man.
Dame Dollar is accurately is accurately named
Wow.
$122 million for 2 years. Listen, I don't know all the mechanics of the NBA, CBA, and as it relates to the contracts. But these max deals, super max deals, and all the rest of it, we've seen some remarkable numbers coming out. We talked about it the last time, all the deals, that we saw that were over 200 million, 225, 250, and so forth. There's been a lot of deals, Jokic got one, Beal got one, Booker, I think Zion maybe even is up
Yeah,
in that
he's in
area.
there.
Man, it's just incredible the amount of money that has been flowing around. And again, we may need to talk to somebody at some point to explain how
Yeah.
all this works.
Yeah. Cause so man, he's gonna be making 60 million in a couple of years, 60 plus million for
Yeah,
1 year.
yeah.
That
Uh, it's just mind blowing. And I know they have a cap system. I know, so obviously players get a certain percentage of basketball related revenue. And it just has to, you just have to, conclude that basketball related revenue is going through the roof,
yeah.
right? And, players are getting this. But yeah, man, 162 million, $122 million for 2 years. It seemed to me Dame Dollar got to be buying dinner for everybody for a while, man. That's what I think.
Yeah. Maybe everybody around the NBA, or at least all of Portland. Because wow.
Yeah. And here's the other thing, Rob. And here's the other thing. And that's just it. That's basketball revenue. But Dame Dollar has been on Hulu.
Yeah,
He's sponsoring Hulu. He's in the Modelo commercials, and I'm sure he has other sponsorships as well. He probably has a sneaker, I would think.
I believe so. And he also has his rap career he's doing. He does his own music too.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he gets something out of there.
But see, here's the thing. It's fine that these guys are making this money, but I would hope that there are players who right now who are making this money and are thinking in terms of ownership,
Mm,
that of coming
yeah.
together maybe at the end of their career, putting some money aside now, getting the right connections with some other moneyed people out there, but maybe getting together with one another and saying, yeah, we're going to take some of this money and we want to position ourselves to buy a franchise one day.
Yep. And I'll tell you who'll start that. It'll be LeBron James.
Probably.
I think he'll be the first one, and that'll hopefully set things off, and we'll see some more diversity in prominent positions in the front offices and a big shift in the NBA for the better.
I hope so. I mean, right now we know we got Mike as, an owner, so why can't there be others?
Yeah,
And you're right. LeBron he's one of the few billionaire athletes out there, right? He crossed over to the $1 billion value, so why not him?
yeah,
But hopefully it's him and some of these other players, because how many cars, how many houses, how much jewelry can you buy after a while, right?
exactly.
So I'm hoping some of these guys are thinking about ownership and saying, listen, at some point I want to come together, whether it's with other players or with other investors, and become an NBA owner.
That would be
That's what's
perfect.
up.
Yeah. Some basketball loving people in prominent basketball positions.
Yep. And likely to be African American players too,
Yep.
which would help in, ownership diversity, right?
Yep.
So we shall see. And here's the other thing too. They don't have to just buy basketball teams,
Exactly.
right? I mean, they can be involved in other stuff too.
Yeah.
But I just hope they're thinking ownership of sports franchises. Because I don't care what owners try to say, in these major sports, they're making money.
Oh yeah.
Big time. Big time.
Oh yeah. That's why I look at a guy like Alex Rodriguez who bought a share of the Timberwolves. And I heard him on a podcast saying, I looked at the NBA and the NBA is trending up. So I knew that my investment in the Timberwolves that investment I made is gonna come right back and maybe double, if not more. So I hope a lot of athletes, like you said, are looking at the money they're making today and realize, if I can invest and get together with a couple, people that I can trust, whatever I invest in a team, whether it's, paying $1 billion or $2 billion or whatever, that can come right back, and then you make a difference. Like you said, increasing that diversity in front offices, that would be a beautiful thing to see.
No doubt. No doubt about it. So we shall see what happens. But all right, bro, we're gonna get on up out of here. We should come back and should be able to come back before the All-Star game. And we'll know more about who's going to get in or not, because I'm sure there are going to be some guys who right now are viewed as snubs who might get in because of injuries or other issues. And then we'll also know who's going to be in the home run derby field. We can round that out. But it doesn't matter, because Albert Pujols is taking home the goal, but we'll just know who he's going to be up against. But MLB All-Star game. Are you a big All-Star game guy? Do you watch the game? Do you enjoy the MLB All-Star game?
I do. I feel like it's gotten better over the past few years. There was a moment in time where it was kind of like, but I've kind of really zoned in, and I actually watch a good chunk of that game, if not the whole game. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So we'll probably, if we can come back next week before the game, we could talk about, the festivities, the home run derby. Well, the home run derby will be Monday night, and then the All-Star game will be on Tuesday. Futures game, on Sunday, right? And so there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on there, but we'll talk about that and other stuff, other happenings around the world of sports when we come back next week and do it again on another edition of Sports 360. So I'll catch you then, bro.
Take it easy, man.
All right.